Hi guys, well I'm back at SpeedSportTuning, my home away from home, and today we have another massive thing that we're doing to my 964. Now we've talked and I've shown you the engine department for obvious reasons, built my engine. We have the restoration department right here. Back there is where I live, which is the street Porsche division, and of course we have BMW, Volkswagen, Audi, basically all the German department here. But what you haven't seen is in this room, over here, that's the race department where we're going to be working today.
This car is so fun.
Today is a very special day, not only because my car is moved to the Speed Sport Race division, but because Spencer Cox, founder of SpeedSportTuning, and Brian Heist, the COO of the JRZ US division, they're both here to help install and set up the new RS Pros specifically designed by JRZ for the 964.
We're here in the race department at SpeedSportTuning, and we're getting ready to put the JRZ suspension in Larry's car. Typically we like to put suspension first and then go to the brakes, and once the driver has gotten enough skills to master the car, we give him power last. Larry started with the engine because the motor was leaking so badly we had no choice to start in that direction. We talked about what kind of suspension, what kind of track use he was going to be driving in, as well as was he still going to keep it on the street, or is this the leak? And he said that he would still take it to and from, but admitted that it was mostly going to be a track car from now on, and that was his ambition. We've been using the JRZ shocks here primarily for the last about 10 years, and they've worked really well. The support is really good. If I have a question, a problem, or I want to develop a certain suspension for a car to match his driving skills, the weight, or the spring rates I intend to use, or even the tires, whether we're going to a DOT or a full slick, you can call Brian at JRZ and he'll develop a shock just for you. And it's hard to get big companies to do that anymore, but they're right here in the States, and they're very open to helping us develop a car and give a lot of suggestions. On this car we picked the RS Pro two ways because we do want to be able to dampen it a little for the street, but pretty much now with Larry, he's hook, line, and sinker, and he's going to be driving this at Watkins Glen and VIR, and soon enough we'll get him to Road America. Let's get started.
On the day of install, FedEx arrived right on time, and I couldn't wait to unwrap my new JRZs. You see, these are one of the first ones released for the 964. So I asked Brian if he could give a crash course on how gas shocks function as part of the car.
All right, Brian, I am freaking out. I'm so excited. My shocks, my JRZs just came in, and they look totally different than the other the shocks, the Konis that I originally had in. Can you first explain the difference between the two of them, and then maybe give us a little tutorial on how shocks in general work?
Absolutely.
Cool.
So the biggest difference people see straight away is the remote canister, which we'll get into a little bit later. And the second one is the two springs. So here you have one spring, and here we have what's called a mainspring, and this is what's going to do most of the work in the suspension, and this is a tender spring. And this kind of soaks up some of the extra travel so your wheels can come down far enough and nothing comes loose. But when you're actually driving around, most of the time, this gray spring is fully compressed.
So this one's going to be squeezed all the way, and then you're riding on this, as opposed to this one where it just seems like it's one massive spring.
Exactly.
So that's difference number one. Okay.
And then we have the top mounts, this is more of an OE style top mount, which has some rubber and some insulation for noise and ride, and we give a little bit of that away with a camber adjustable top mount that has a bearing inside of it, so it's a very direct, very precise feeling part.
More performance driven.
Precisely.
Okay, so when I go up here and I adjust it, it changes it, a little bit here and there kind of thing, and this one's going to be there'll be a bigger difference in when I play with the, actually I probably shouldn't be playing with it. You guys are going to be setting this up right now.
We'll teach you how, and let's show you how it works. So here, let's just use a simple representation of the shock body with this rectangle. And this is all filled with oil in both of them.
Okay.
And then we have our piston rod, which is this silver piece here and here. Attached to that is a piston, and it's got some shims and things like that inside to restrict the oil flow. So as this is attached to the car, this is attached to the wheels, the wheel moves up and down relative to the car, the oil is going to go through this piston and create some resistance, some shock force. What you do with your adjuster up top is you have a hole somewhere in here that lets the oil go through more or less unrestricted. So when you make this adjustment, you change the size of this hole.
The size of the hole opening and closing, okay.
Exactly, and in something like your Coney, you might have a small gas pocket or, you know, some variant of that design in the bottom. What we do with the remote reservoir is we take a line and we go to our reservoir here and we have a much bigger gas pocket. And what that allows us to do is we can run a lot of gas pressure to support the car.
So the gas is in this mostly.
Correct.
Gotcha, okay.
And when everything's moving, the gas compresses a little bit relative to its size so it doesn't influence the spring rate of the car any. We also put our compression adjuster there, right here. So as this rod comes down, when the shock is compressing, the oil goes through the line, and we have a little resistance mechanism inside. So as the oil goes by, you create a little bit of compression resistance and you adjust it right there.
As you might imagine, the first step is removing the old Coney shocks, which, to be honest, didn't really take that long. Once all four corners are clear, Chute tests the hardware before placing the shock in the mounting position. However, the gas reservoirs are going to need some extra work, and we'll talk about that in a minute. After the rears are installed, Chute prepares the top mounting bracket for the driver's side front and pushes the reservoir hose through the top strut opening to be used later. To hold the shock in place, a floor jack is used to mimic the car's weight if it were sitting on the road. Then it's secured to the frame with 4 bolts. The last step of installation is finding a secure location to mount the reservoirs, and Chute had a great idea.
All right, Chute, we put both struts in the front and now we're working on the rear. And I'm curious, this is the line for the reservoir. Like, where would this possibly go?
Okay, so what we want to do is we want to keep the reservoir away from any type of heat source or any type of corrosion
Which
area.
would be this.
So the really hot exhaust manifold here. So what we have is we have a hole from the factory in the rear seat pan. And what I've done is I've cut a hole here to go through the carpet, and since you don't have rear seats, it'll make it nice and easy, and we can mount this right on your roll bar so you can make any adjustments you want to do in car without jacking the car up and getting underneath, and really just to keep this safe.
So it's not going to be this outside element. It's not going to get all dirty and nasty.
Yeah.
And I can just kind of turn around and adjust it if necessary.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool. All right, Brian, Chute is done installing everything, and he's putting in the cans, so kind of on the last little rounding third, so to speak.
Yep.
What are the next steps once it's installed? What do you need to do?
So after we've gotten the suspension in, we're going to set the ride height here on the spring perch, and we want to do that so that when we get the car down, it's about where we want. Let's say ride height is for, you know, clearance on the road, the right rake, the angle of the car for performance, and of course looks as well.
Okay. So that's
Then-
step one.
That's step one. Then we're going to go ahead and refill the nitrogen. When we installed the canisters, we released the nitrogen so that we could safely disconnect the lines to install them inside the car.
Gotcha.
Now that we've got it installed, we're reconnected, we're going to go ahead and get the nitrogen recharged. That'll give the suspension some lifting force and prevent internal cavitation so the fluid doesn't bubble up and it stays fluid.
Makes sense.
After that, we'll go on to the alignment rack. We'll get the car corner balanced and aligned. What we want to do there is balance how much each wheel is contributing to holding the car up so the weights are nice and even and square around the car. And we'll align it so we'll set the camber and toe of the tires so that everything's pointed in the right direction that we want for the tire that we're installing.
Makes sense.
After that, we'll set the suspension adjustments. We'll make sure that the right compression and rebound settings are applied for the spring rates that we have and everything else and for the comfort level we desire. Then we're going to go ahead and drive.
All right. I cannot wait. Pretty soon you and I are going to be out on the road testing this out.
Oh yeah.
All right, I'm stoked.
That's the fun part.
Okay, so let's back up a second. I need to make something abundantly clear. Removing old shocks and installing new shocks is one thing. Setting up a car, a specific car, in this case mine, is a piece of engineering artwork. Creating the perfect balance isn't a cookie-cutter formula. What makes the car feel balanced is not just the shocks, nor is it just the race alignment. It's the combination of both. So here's what I learned. Removing and installing my new JRZs requires a highly skilled mechanic. However, turning a car into what I can only describe as a 3,000-pound ballerina requires a race engineer. Joe and Chute have a very specific routine to gather information like overall weight, weight distribution from back to front, side to side, and relative to each wheel. First, each alignment table, which is placed under the tires, must be 100% perfectly level to the ground and, of course, each other. Otherwise, all the following calculations will be off. Next, Joe places the scale pads and then the turntables, which allows the car to squat and relax on the alignment tables, so when adjustments are made, the wheels move freely and don't bind up. The wires are plugged into the computer scale, which displays weight distribution from wheel to wheel and side to side. With these exact measurements, Joe and Brian enter the data into SpeedSport's computer program for further analysis. These setup numbers are very important to any race team. They are the essential ingredients to baking a stable car. Based on the latest numbers, Joe makes a few last-minute tweaks. Next is the alignment. No digital screens or special lifts here. This is done by string, ruler, and eye. Race teams use string rather than alignment electronics because this process can be duplicated precisely anywhere in the world with 100% accuracy. You see, electronics need calibration. Strings don't. SpeedSport's technique is not only used at their shop, but trackside in between sessions if necessary, and that's pretty cool.
Okay, so we set up the strings. We have a box of string around the car, and it's centered on the axles, it's centered on the center line of the car. And what we're going to do is we're going to measure each wheel, camber and toe, and set it to the position that we want for your alignment.
After further review, Chute decides 2-degree front camber is the right fit for my setup. SpeedSport is known nationwide in the Porsche club community for their unique race car setup, and their cars hold more class records than any other shop. So I'm pretty excited to have them working on my 964.
So now we've gotten the suspension installed, corner balanced and aligned. The last step is to set the damping adjustments. We're going to start with the front rebound, which, as we saw in our earlier demonstration, is adjusting the amount of bypass past the piston to create the damping force. So first we go to full soft to give ourselves a reference point, and then we're going to count upwards from there. In this case, 6 clicks in the front. Let's do the left side. And we're good to go. Now we've got the front rebound set. We're going to set the front compression and then the rear compression, get our canisters mounted, and then it's time to drive. Again, we'll go full soft, and we're going to start here at 5. What's convenient about this damper is that it has an index written on the knob, so you don't have to count it, you can do it visually.
So I'm taking a turn on my new JRZ suspension, and they feel amazing.
Wait till you get to the track.
Yeah, next thing I need to do is get to the track with this. Well guys, I drove down the New Jersey Motorsports Park and the car is unbelievable. Now the suspension, specifically the JRZ RS Pro, how do I describe it? It's very stiff, but at the same time forgiving. So it's not like you go over a bump and your teeth fall out kind of thing. Obviously we're at the track, so there's cars and it's a beautiful noise. But the car is running amazing, so I'll take some in-car footage. Now yesterday, or once we finished this setup, if you notice we have the Cup 117s on. The following day, my unbelievable 1552 Magnus Walker Outlaw rims came in. You see they're all dirty because I just came back from a few sessions. And so we had to realign, reset it up. Joe from SpeedSportTuning set everything up. If you guys don't have perspective on what it takes to set the ride height, set the alignment, corner balance, and then tweak the camber and the toe in, and I mean, it really is an art form. And when you set it up, the car literally becomes like this glove or whatever cliche thing that you say. I mean, it's totally 100% different vehicle when I was done with the 18s. Finally, we put the Toyo Proxy R88s on. Holy cow, when you go from regular street tires to these, and obviously they're short of a slick, these I can drive on the street but are absolutely unbelievably sticky as can be. Look, I mean, it's so sticky. They're perfect for the street track sort of use. So anyways, the setup is unbelievable. I am very, very grateful. Of course, SpeedSportTuning, Toyo Tires, 1552, JRZ, all the guys that make these amazing parts. I'm gonna do some in-car camera footage and show you what we're doing, but for a 25-year-old car, I couldn't be happier. As always, thank you for watching. If you have any questions, shoot me an email, larry@ammonyc.com. Get out there and enjoy your car. This is a different aspect. I love detailing it, but man, I love getting it dirty. I'll talk to you guys soon. That thing and then walk back to where you started. Don't look at the camera, get it nice and straight. There we go. Try to get it as straight as possible on the first try.
Nope.
That was perfect. Walk away. Nah, look at you. Look at you.